Hey all, and welcome back to a very tropical tutorial. My name's Luke, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you're likely to see a few palm trees. The type I'm making today are called Washington fan palm trees. They are very easy to make, however they do take some time, so let's not waste any more and get into the tutorial. To start with, I freely draw a palm leaf as best I can. Getting a nice shape with evenly spaced leaf spikes can be difficult, and I assure you, the leaf you're watching me draw right now certainly was not my first. But with some practice, you'll soon have the perfect leaf. Don't worry about drawing your leaf to scale, it's much easier to draw a larger leaf, and once you're done, simply take a photo of the leaf, upload it to your computer where we can rescale it. I used Photoshop to simplify the image and remove any colour, only leaving the basic outline of the leaf I drew. Then from there, I paste the image onto a Word document. The small ruler at the top helps me scale the leaf to the size I want, which for this leaf is about 1.7 centimeters wide. Next, it's just a matter of duplicating the image on the paper and sending it off to the printer. Now comes the more difficult and tedious job of cutting out and preparing the leaves. I suggest getting comfortable and putting on some good music to help you get the job done faster. The wire I'm using is 28 gauge Florists wire, and I glue a small piece to the back of each leaf to help give it structure and stability. But before I glue the wire, I mark the leaf at the top and the bottom on the front with a marker. That way, when I flip the paper over, I can easily see where each piece of wire needs to go. Gluing the wire is simply done with tacky craft glue. Next, I use some wide masking tape, this is 48mm wide, and completely cover the back of the leaves, making sure to press firmly across the back and around each of the wires to ensure good adhesion. It doesn't have to be green masking tape, as it will be painted over later on. Just ensure the tape is wide enough to completely cover the back of each leaf and cut away the excess. Each individual leaf is cut free, and then I carefully trim around the perimeter of each leaf following the tips of the spikes. As for cutting the finer detail into the leaf, I've found using a number 2 hobby knife is a little easier than the standard number 11 blade. Now it's just a matter of carefully cutting out each of the grooves between the leaves. It's a very tedious job, but the end result is definitely worth the effort. Just take your time, and before you know it, you'll have all the leaves you need. In preparation for painting, I lightly dip the end of the wire in craft glue and stick each leaf into some foam. The glue holds the leaf firmly in the foam, preventing it from moving and twisting whilst being painted. The chosen colour for my leaves is Vallejo Golden Olive straight out of the bottle. Just dilute it very lightly with a few drops of water and paint it directly onto the leaves. And don't forget to paint the back of the leaves as well. Depending on how thin your mixture is, you may need a second coat to completely cover the black ink, then set it aside to dry. The trunk is made using electrical wire. This piece is 2.7mm thick, and I cut it to a length of about 7 inches. To create a pin on the base for installing the finished tree, I strip the bottom inch to reveal the bare wire. To add that typical palm tree look instead of a completely smooth trunk, I wrap the entire piece of electrical wire using the 28 gauge Florists wire, starting from the bottom and working my way up. And once you get the bottom started, it becomes easier, and you can roll the wire through your fingers as the wire works its way up the trunk. Every so often I'll allow a larger gap to appear as I roll the wire, This will add extra definition to the trunk once it's finished. Once you're done, cut away the excess from the top and bottom and press it into a block of foam. This will make it easier to handle as we add more detail to the trunk. I wasn't entirely happy with the length, it was a little taller than I wanted. However, it's very simple to trim the top down to the desired height. To simplify the installation of the leaves, I create a top using air drying modeling clay. Basically, using a small amount of clay, I make a rounded top on the trunk, using the water to help keep the clay soft as I sculpt it. And I then do the same with the base to create an irregular, yet more realistic shape. Before the top has a chance to dry, I carefully poke 30 holes for each leaf into the clay as evenly around the top as I can using a needle. The clay generally breaks away from the smooth foam surface easily, however you may need to use a sharp hobby knife to prevent damage as you lift the tree away. The texture we achieved on the trunk using the wire looks good, however on its own it looks unrealistic. So to help blend the detail and get a better overall appearance, I liberally coat the trunk in gesso. It's an acrylic paste that is paintable and remains flexible, so we can bend and manipulate the trunk even after we've finished building our tree. I ended up using 2 coats of gesso, and to better shape the base of the tree, I carefully cut and carved around the base using a hobby knife until I got the shape that I was happy with. Painting the trunk is quite easy. I ended up mixing burnt umber, white and light mud in a ratio of 1, 2 and 5 to get a colour I was happy with. The Vallejo light mud is very close to stone grey, which could also be used. Basically, you can try different colours until you get the colour that is what you are trying to model. I add further detail in the form of sharp lines across the trunk. For this you'll need a very fine tipped brush and a complementary colour. I ended up using English uniform for the extra detail. I do my best to avoid painting lines that are too thick and only use very light brush strokes. A lot of palm trees have dead fronds hanging from the bottom. This is easily modelled using twine. Start by cutting it to about 3 or 4 centimeters, then separate all the separate fibers of the twine. Next, using spray adhesive, apply a light coat to the top of the trunk. It only needs a very small amount of spray. Now it's just a matter of pressing the separate twine fibres around the top of the trunk. Then repeat the process 2 more times, using shorter fibres each time. This will result in having thicker coverage near the top, and the fibres taper off and thin out as it goes down the trunk. Any stray fibres are simply pressed into line, pulled off using tweezers, or cut using fine scissors. Now for the fun part, adding leaves. Each leaf is glued into position with superglue. I first remove each leaf one at a time, and then with these side cutters remove the excess wire, but leave at least 1 or 2 millimeters of wire on the end. Each leaf gets bent and shaped with the tweezers. And don't forget to rough up the leaves by curling them with the tweezers as well. You can also bend the top of the leaf and fold it inwards to create a more defined V shape if desired. Then just dip the end in super glue and press the small piece of excess wire we left behind into each hole we created on the top of the trunk. The spray adhesive should still be a little bit tacky, which will initially help the leaves hold their position as the super glue dries. It takes a while, but as you can see, the results are worth it. Just take your time and you'll be finished before you know it. Final detail can be added to the leaves by painting the bottom leaves a beige colour and dry brushing some of the leaf tips with the same beige colour. For that I used Vallejo Buff. Just be gentle as it's quite easy to knock some of the leaves off the trunk. And that's it. Now you have a cheap but very effective way of making some great looking palm trees. They take a while to make, but you only need a few to really add character and realism to your layout. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page if you'd like to help support these videos. Cheers and thanks for watching.